years ago for me at some points in my life. So it's a good morning and it's a good afternoon. Happy Harvey Milk Day, and I'm glad you all survived the rapture too. Can you hear me? The high desert wind was constant. It arrived after blowing across the Mojave, up Hockney's Pear Blossom Highway and into the Santa Clarita Valley, where it would gust against the classrooms at Our Lady of Perpetual Help. The persistent wind would make school uniforms billow, blow off the nuns' veils, and play with sports equipment on the playground. The monkey bars would chime all day long at Patrick Carpenter's grade school. These winds carried the sounds of Peter Frampton, Fleetwood Mac, Jerry Brown, and Linda Ronstadt, the vrooming of Eric Estrada's motorcycle. Occasionally, the theme song of the Waltons could be heard. For years, beginning around age 9, Patrick Carpenter always asked for a plaid robe for Christmas. For some reason, his parents, who showered Patrick and his brothers with more expensive and harder to find gifts, never gave him one. He thought it a perfectly normal request. The Beaver and Wally wore robes, as did Greg, Peter, and Bobby Grady. Patrick was old enough to know that the Lawrence Welk show his grandparents watched weren't cool, and the Beatles were. Sexuality was still theoretical, but he liked the idea of riding on Eric Estrada's motorcycle and experienced strange tingles whenever the Hardy Boys were tied up, which happened in nearly every book in their ongoing crime saga. As time went on and Christmases passed, Patrick began to believe that his father, who never wore a robe, viewed the robe request as a sign that his interests, fashion and otherwise, weren't traditionally masculine. Only later would these suspicions be confirmed. But let's face it, a robe is a gender-neutral garment that with just a few alterations could be a Dion von Furstenberg wrap dress. Patrick didn't want to be a girl. He just liked how robes looked. Okay, perhaps he did want to twirl a little. But boys in Catholic school in 7th grade in November of 1978 did not twirl. Patrick was referred to as sensitive and special by his parents and the school's principal, Sister Elizabeth Ann, who always called Patrick out of class for the lucrative funeral altar boy duties. Sister Elizabeth Ann was astounded at Patrick's astonishing knowledge of movie trivia. He couldn't tell you who won the Rams game, but could tell you what year Greer Garson won the Academy Award and what color Jacqueline Kennedy wore when she met Charles de Gaulle. This pleased the principal to no end, and she and Patrick would often spend recesses on the periphery of the asphalt playground quizzing each other's knowledge of film. Patrick's favorite film was Vertigo, with the sexy Hitchcock ice queen, Kim Novak. It also starred San Francisco, a city that Patrick already knew he would live in someday. My all-time favorite actress is Ingrid Bergman. Her performance for Whom the Bell Tolls should have won her the Oscar, in my humble opinion. Such strength, such beauty, she said, as the dangling knots blew from her brown Franciscan habit, one for poverty, one for chastity, one for obedience, all blowing in the wind. Sister Elizabeth Ann could never understand why all the 7th and 8th grade boys would fall to the asphalt uncontrollably with laughter when she announced the end of recess on her chipped tan megaphone by yelling, "Boys, hold your balls! Hold your balls! Boys, hold your balls!" Only Mrs. Benz, the playground monitor, could get the boys to stop laughing by threatening trash collection duty after school. Get to class now, boys. The principal was tough but fair. She didn't expel Jim Balsamo when he pulled a Swiss Army knife on Patrick and apologized, but did expel him when he brought a condom into the classroom. The whole 7th grade knew about the scandal. Jim has a rubber in his backpack. Within an hour of that October morning, Sister Elizabeth Ann entered the classroom. All the students stood. She went to Jim's desk and asked him loudly, "Where is it?" Balsamo fumbled with his backpack and pulled out the unwrapped prophylactic and rolled it down on his thumb and with his index finger. Sister Elizabeth Ann slapped James hard and asked loudly, "Did you feel that? Did you feel that?" James said nothing. "No, and you'll never..." James said nothing. "No, and you never will with your wife if you wear this. Grab your things and follow me to the office." Jim Balsamo was never seen again. On November 27th, the principal called an unexpected mass. The entire school gathered in church to hear that this was a special mass for fellow Catholic George Moscone. Father Tim also mentioned Harvey Milk's murder in his homily. Thou shalt not kill is unequivocal. To hate anyone for any reason is against the teaching of Christ and St. Francis. 20 years later, at the San Francisco Gay Pride Parade, looking above the ACT UP protesters who'd stopped the procession to have a die-in and outline their bodies in pink and red chalk, he thought he saw Sister Elizabeth Ann across Market Street, dressed in Dinah Shore weekend chic, her head resting on a woman's shoulder. 20 years older and showing short gunmetal gray hair, the only nun at OLPH whose veil never blew off in the wind. In an instant, he knew it was Mrs. Benz caressing his former principal's madras shorts. She'd apparently given up poverty and chastity. Patrick locked eyes with Elizabeth Ann. He heard she'd left the order and the grammar school and gazed into the familiar, knowing, satisfied smile, looking and nodding her head in silent approval at him. He fingered the numerous free condoms he'd been thrown during the parade. In the instant it took Seth to point out the women to his Tom Selleck lookalike date and friends, the women vaporized into the crowd. Like the outlines of the body on Market Street, which now looked like a colorful crime scene, the void was more powerful than the solid. The parade moved on, and during the Mike's on Bikes contingent, Patrick remembered to finally getting his first robe in the 8th grade and where he twirled for the first time.